everyone, this is Star Zenith 33 Laura Francesca here at the Astro Weather, where I am going to be talking about the Cancer Moon. Okay, the Cancer Moon is making a couple of challenges here when it comes to Saturn, when it comes to the Tao. If you want to listen in to what is happening with the frequencies with the stocks and Wall Street, and what the heck happened to Korea and that bloodbath they had with the stocks. So let's jump in here. Of course, it's more than stocks. Okay, we're going to be talking about this. It pertains to the collective, but those that are in business, are entrepreneurs, it's a great time to kind of look at what is going on with the frequencies. So let's jump in there. Okay, thank you for following the podcast. It's going to be, hopefully, I will make it a short podcast. I've always said I wanted to do it under 30 minutes, or under 33 minutes, and it's never possible because I always have a lot to talk about. But I don't want to bombard people because I'm also going to be doing the new moon in Cancer, and I also want to conserve my energy here. So anyway, let's jump in here. So in this episode here, what we're doing is that we're exploring this POW energy, okay? Powerful energy of this Cancer moon, especially right now that it's in the 8th house of transformations, of wealth, of wins and losses, okay? Joint finances. And as it squares the Tao asteroid in the 5th house of gambling, taking risks, challenges, right? And connects with Saturn, which is the daddy planet, which Saturn is billionaires. Saturn rules where there's discipline and where there's consistency and where there's work to do, in the sign of Aries. Okay, and where it's located is in the 4th house. I'm drinking my lime cucumber water that I just did last night, and it's so yummy. And so where Saturn is, it's in the 4th house of real estate, of roots, lineage, family, your home, okay? And so these transits, what they do is that they invite us to examine the emotional patterns. We're talking about the moon in Cancer, it's very emotional. And so these emotional patterns of family conditioning and inherited beliefs that have quietly shaped our sense of security, self-worth, and personal power. Where have you been carrying the weight of the past? Which emotional stories are ready to end so a stronger version of you can emerge? These are some of the questions that we can ask ourselves, okay? So together we'll discuss how the 8th house encourages deep healing and transformation, and why Saturn asks us to build an unshakable inner foundation, and how challenges around creativity, risk, love, or abundance can become catalysts for lasting growth. So this isn't just about breaking old cycles. It's about creating a new legacy rooted in courage, emotional wisdom, and authentic strength. So in this episode, you'll discover how the Cancer moon illuminates hidden emotional patterns, why Saturn in Aries challenges you to become your own foundation, the deeper meaning of transforming ancestral and family karma, how emotional resilience can become your greatest source of power. So your past may explain you, but it doesn't have to define you. Okay? So your past may explain where you've been, the patterns that have been surfacing in your life all these years. But it's not what defines you. What defines you is who you become. Okay? It's, for an example, it could be, you were raised in a not so good neighborhood, right? That was your upbringing. Well, it doesn't define who you are, because once you move out of that location, let's say you hit the lottery, an example, right? And all of a sudden, you move into a better community, right? So, who you've been all these years doesn't define you anymore now that you live in a different community, right? So, it's not it's a temporary situation. It's not a permanent situation. Okay? This is why I feel that, you know, just where you are, just you're not a tree. In other words, I heard that quote before. It said, move because you're not a tree. Now, a tree doesn't move because it's a tree. But you, as a human being, you have legs, you have arms, you have a brain, you have talent, you have skills. You can move, you know? And so you have to, put that effort into using your skills. And sometimes it might take a little bit longer than others. Sometimes it might take faster than others, right? And this is why you have to connect with people, okay? So you can, let them know what your talents and your skills are. This is why we use social media to brand ourselves, to personal brand ourselves, to personal brand our products or our services, right? So we can start making that money to get out of a situation we need to get out of. You're not just sitting yourself and not doing anything, right? You can charge for your services. You can charge for your knowledge of what other people are looking for. Okay. So who you've been is not who you are. Okay. Who you are is who you become today. So that's what we're going to be talking about here. So let's jump into the chart here with the moon in. The moon is conjuncting Mercury. Okay, so there's a lot of communication that we're doing when it comes to probably deaths. We woke up this morning with the actor of Jurassic Park, I believe. He passed away. He looks like he was a good man. He was like a much older man. And, he was very much about nature. He loved ducks and he loved just nature. He loved being in peace. And, that's kind of rare for an actor, He was one of those, older actors and so forth. And they say he had cancer too. So, he beat cancer and then it probably came back and he passed away. They say out of illness. So that was unfortunate there. But don't be surprised if a lot of celebrities are going to be passing away because, we do have Jupiter in Leo, and Leo has to do with celebrities. So it has to do with fame. It has to do with Hollywood. And so right now that it's in Jupiter, it's very much elevated, okay, as it opposes Pluto in Aquarius, and Pluto rules death, as it's opposing Leo, which rules celebrities, okay? So you got to take care of your health, I predict there's going to be a lot of people are going to be having like heart palpitations pertaining, because Leo has to do with the heart. And, so you take care of your heart health, okay? It's not a good time for you to get overly excited over things, if you don't have a good heart, if you're a Leo, right? Or if you even, it depends where you have Leo, right? For me, I'm taking care of my heart health, okay? Because the fourth house has to do with the body as well. And what I'm doing is I'm taking olive oil shots, okay? And so I think the bottle's from Spain. I bought one. I was going to buy an Italian one, right? Because that's like the most authentic, from Italy. They actually export them. And if you go to some, shops where they have a lot of Italian products, they they, what do you call it? They export them from Italy down to the United States, and they put them in shops and so forth. And so I was gonna buy one of those, but I was already at the market. I'm like, I might as well just grab it here because I just needed a bottle right away because I did have a little bit of slight small palpitations, but I do have a really cute pink blood pressure machine that you put it on your wrist. It's like so trendy right now. I seen it in TikTok, and a lot of influencers are into it. A lot of influencers are right now into health. Okay. And so they're making these cute products, and I bought one, and it's pretty accurate because I compared it to my mom's blood pressure, and it's just off by about maybe 8 or 9, I don't know what they're calling, digits, I guess. That they're just 8 or 9 apart from, my mom's original, like, because it kind of looks like it's like pink, and it's fun, and but it's pretty accurate, you know what I mean? And it tells you there. I'm always checking my blood pressure every day, and that's only because that palpitation was coming and then it left, and then I'm taking a spoonful of I think it's called cold press olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. And so I'm taking that in the morning and in the night. And I'm just trying to be healthy. I'm trying to eat healthy. I'm trying to, just not overly, do too much. And so just trying to live a good life. You know what I mean? Be balanced. And that is the best health we can do, right? And when we're grateful and we're gratitude, we have, gratitude in our lives. That is very, very important. And so this moon with Mercury right now in the eighth house, we're most likely talking about death. We're mostly talking about transformation, how we want to transform our money, especially because Mercury is in Cancer in the 20 degree of Scorpio. So that has to do with money. That has to do with assets and worth and so forth, and joint finances and all of that. And it's how we feel in the sign of Cancer. It's right now at 15. Most likely, I think it probably went 1 degree. It might be in 16 degree. But I don't really want to mess with the chart right now. I just want to read it based on, the time when I was reading it. Yeah, because he is 6:14 right now. So totally different transits right now. But when I was planning on reading it, it was 4:30, and the reason I'm reading it at such a behind time, like 4:30, is because I had already did the podcast, but I don't know what happened, technology. Um, because what happens is I do the podcast and then I go over it, right? And it was so staticky, like with the music, like you can even understand nothing. And I was like, oh, great. So I'm like, I'm gonna redo it because I don't like it. And I don't know why it does that. It's like every time I connect my microphone to my phone, it's like I have to do like testing, before I start it, because sometimes it's staticky. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the microphone or just the Podbean. I don't know. Anyway, um, but it was a little bit staticky and you can't understand what I'm saying. So I just said, let me redo it again because I think this one I like it better than the first one anyway. I think I was talking too much on the first one, and I was not talking much about this Tao that we need to talk about. Okay, so as we are communicating about money, yeah, I feel I'm more balanced in this episode. The other one, well, I was probably all over the place. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, what's going on is that I did the first podcast. I don't think I was all over the place, but I was a little bit more um, jumpy, I guess, more elevated. And then I grabbed my grounding mat and I said, I'm going to ground my feet and then I'll do the second podcast. And I have my feet right now on this grounding mat underneath my seat. Okay. And I could tell that I'm talking now a little bit more slower. So it's grounding me. So it's a good thing. I just don't want my feet to be on there too much because then I'll be sleepy. So anyway, We're talking about Mercury. We're talking about how we feel about, eighth house themes that has to do with money. It has to do with resources. And it's making a challenge to Saturn. Okay. So that's a biggie because Saturn is what controls, it's in the sign of Aries. Okay. So right now it's at 14 degrees of Banks. And Saturn is conjuncting the Tao. So there's this asteroid. I added some new asteroids in here that I have not talked about. The Tao is one of them. And I said, well, if I'm going to be talking about finances and timing, I might as well add it on there, right? Besides other money asteroids that I also have in here. And so the Dow has to do with the stocks, the Dow, right? The stock exchange, Wall Street, all of that. For those that are entrepreneurs, for those that, are into, playing the stock market and so forth. So it's coming together with Saturn. And this planet of Saturn has to do with billionaires, has to do with bankers, especially at 14 degrees of Banks, okay? And where the Tao is in the fifth house of taking a chance, of taking risks, okay, of the lottery, anything like that. And it has to do with fun. Like you like to play with the stocks and it's fun. And, you like to gamble and so forth, and it's coming together with Saturn. Now, where Saturn is in the fourth house of real estate. So you might be gambling with real estate. You might be taking a chance. Maybe you want to buy some properties if you have money like that. You want to invest in some properties, anything like that. Or maybe you want to renovate your home, okay? Because that's where Saturn is. It's in the fourth house. Maybe your home might be a little bit too stagnant, okay? And you want to add some new furniture. You want to add some new pillows or something like that. With taking a chance. Or it might be a bigger risk than that, right? You might want to invest in a home. Okay, another property, right? But it is making a challenge, okay, to the moon in Cancer that has to do with families and some communication there in Cancer as well that has to do with families, and it has to do with resources. So it might be that you might take a chance and you did not inform your family about buying a property or leasing a property or moving to a new property, right? And it could bring some kind of challenge there because it was not talked about, right? Or it might bring a challenge because you moved and you did not tell your family members that you moved, right? So having open communication, with your immediate family and let them know, what the situation is. There might be lack of communication as well. Okay. And some of the lack of communication might be maybe there's no phone, maybe, I know, for instance, like with my father, his phone broke. So I ordered him another phone, and, he was stressing about that. And I said, okay, let me fix it. Let me see. I was trying to see if he can still reinstate his old phone, and he could not do that. So I ordered him another phone, and, it's going to come in the mail, but it's not here yet, So there could be this lack of communication there with maybe trying to get a hold of him or something like that, and I could see that happening. Especially because, right now he's old and he's been having health issues, and it is concerning because he's already old. I mean, he's almost 90, And, but I've seen a lot of men past 90. Warren Buffett, he's also a Virgo, and Warren Buffett, I think he's 90 something, right? But Warren Buffett takes care of his body, though. You know what I mean? He has the money to take care of his body. But, when the body just cannot go further, then, especially once you hit your 90s, anybody that reaches their 90s should be blessed, because nowadays nobody reaches their 90s. I mean, look at what happened to the actor that passed away this morning. I don't know what his name is, but the Jurassic Park actor, he was in his 70s, so he was young. I think he was like 76 or something like that. And so 70s is still pretty young, and he passed away. So, and there's people that just pass away, when God blows the candle and says it's time to go, you know. And those that are older and are living here and older is because they're either leaving a legacy, or they need to be exemplary of responsibility before they go to the other side. Okay, because over there on the other side, um, God, for some reason, will not let you go to the other side until you complete something here on the earth side. Okay, especially if you have a yod. If you have a yod, like, you're not leaving. I don't care how many people are wanting you to get out of here, or wanting to do revenge on you or kill you off or whatever. It's not going to happen if you have a yod. Okay. It doesn't mean that you can't go, but it just means that, you know, if you have lack of support, like Nikola Tesla had, he had a yod, and he had lack of support because they thought his ideas were too off. They thought his ideas were just in another world, but they actually did believe in his ideas, though. That's the hypocrite thing about it, okay? That they did believe that he was crazy enough, and whatever ideas that he had were these scientific ideas that were going to work. He's gone, and we still use the 369 method, right? And that's what, he had experiment with 369 numbers of how to manifest, and everything. We still use it as today. So they did believe in what he, but they just didn't support it. Maybe they wanted to keep it to themselves, and copyright his work, right? And he was not here to defend himself. So, just because you have a yod, I mean, doesn't mean that you cannot go, but, that he had too many people against him and not supporting him and so forth. This is why it's good to know the astrology to see if you are supported or not, if you do have a yod, For instance, me, I have a good yod where it is supported. Okay, it is supported by Pluto. Okay. And it is supported also by the MC, which is the midheaven, where you get your applause and your recognition and your honors and so forth. Okay. So that's a good thing. Another example is Jenny Rivera. Jenny Rivera is that Latina singer that passed away in an airplane. And she had a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, which is very powerful. That's what billionaires have. So this is why she was very successful in real estate. It was until she entered the music industry based on her father. He wanted her to enter the music industry. And speaking of this, I mean, because we're talking about karmic family situations that need to be healed, right? And, her father wanted her to be a musician, but for a female to be a musician, especially the music that she was singing, is pretty dangerous. Okay, because we're talking about groups in Mexico. We know who they are, right? I'm gonna say it's cartels, right? And so they listened to her music. They didn't agree with her music. She would talk really down on men in that group and society, and they just hated her, and these are evil men and stuff, so it was very dangerous for her to do. I personally, if I would have gave her some advice, I would have said, well, just stick to real estate. You don't have to go into the whole music industry. And if your father expects you to go into the industry for the family, so you guys can earn a lot of money and have more fame and so forth, you need to have an honest conversation with your father and tell him, look, I am a female, and maybe my brothers, because her brother was in the music industry too, maybe, push him more into the music industry, but I'm a female and I want to live a long life. I don't want, I don't want to be persecuted. I don't want, for people to talk bad of our family or whatever it is. So it wasn't easy her being a musician. Okay, it was not. They were even they were making fun of her weight because she was overweight. So these are all family karmics, okay, of situations and having to heal when it comes to money. And there's this new legacy that we are supposed to build now, has nothing to do with the past. This is a new legacy that we are now starting with the moon in Cancer, the new moon in Cancer. You know, it's so interesting that I'm talking about her. I don't even know why I'm talking about her, but sometimes conversations just lead from one to another. And she's a Cancer. Well, she was a Cancer, or maybe she's still a Cancer. But anyway, you know, and when we all knew her, she was alive. She was a Cancer. Okay, a Cancer sun. And this is why, you know, she was very female and very like about females, you know, and didn't respect men, you know, and she did have a toxic relationship. I seen like her whole documentary. I don't know how true it is, but yeah, on Netflix, I seen like the whole. I never watch all of that. Okay, and I think I watched it on my phone, and or I don't know if no, I don't think it was Netflix. It was Telemundo. Yeah, it was. I think it was Telemundo, and they had a series of. But I think she did do Netflix. I'm not too sure, but I think it was Telemundo in the Telemundo app, and they had like her series. Like I think there was like 20 or 25 episodes. It was a lot. And but it was very fascinating about her life, you know. But the reason I'm talking about her is because she was not supported. Okay, she was not supported with her MC, her midheaven, where she gets her applause and her awards and everything. It was squaring her Pluto. Okay, so we know Pluto has to do with men. It has to do with resources. It has to do with the backing. And it was challenging her recognition. It was challenging her awards. It was challenging like all of that. She still got all of that. And she was a risk taker. She had an Aquarius moon as well. She was a risk taker. She didn't care. I think she had that mentality, well, if I die, I die. Fuck it. You know? Like I'm going to live how I want to live. I'm going to sing what I want to sing. I'm going to live a life and I'm not going to be afraid, you know. But she also was, you know, she had boyfriends that were into that and all that. So that was another thing. She didn't make the right choices when it came to her love relationships, you know. That really screwed up her money, you know, and her legacy of what she needed to leave behind, because she was really successful in real estate. She was really good. And you know, things happen and so forth. But, you know, the reason I say that I would have told her to get out of the music industry because she's not being supported in that, you know, and just stick to real estate, do sales in real estate. You could still make a lot of money, you know, but it just was not supported by men, especially like powerful men. It was not supporting her career, her recognition, her status. So it's very, very important how your Pluto is placed with your recognition. Okay. And I use her as an example of what happened to her. What happened to her? She got raped. Okay. She got raped by these drunk men in this club, you know, which is the irony that I used to go to that club many, many years ago. Okay. And yeah, all those kind of cartel men used to go to those clubs, you know, always in the front row with Buchanan liquor of bottles, just like right there, you know. And yeah, I remember I used to go with my friends. We used to go to those clubs, that actual club where she got raped. And she got raped in the parking lot or something like that. Like they knew who she was, and like they almost kidnapped her. Like they literally raped her like on the street, on the pavement. And something so scary, right? That's Pluto. That is squaring her recognition. Like they recognized who she was, and she was at the club. She was barely coming up though. She was still not famous yet. But according to the documentary, you know, that's what they did to her, and it was not supported, you know. And so it's important that you are supported. And in my chart, I'm supported. Okay, my Pluto in Libra does support my midheaven in Aquarius. They're both air signs, so they trine, so they're in harmony, right? So, because, for me, I'm about being of service to the collective, I don't consider myself a diva, I've never really considered myself as a diva. I'm not, I don't want people to see me as a diva either, okay? I'm more educational. I'm more about being of service and supporting others, passing the baton, and just giving advice to people of how they can make more money, how they can grow more, and so forth, and I have my midheaven is in Aquarius in the 10th house of status and recognition, which the 10th house has to do with men as well. It has to do with having like this consciousness of masculine, of being intellect, when it comes to Aquarius, when it comes to, I talk about things that you need to protect yourself as well with this high 5G that we have. And there's jewelry for that, and I use it and so forth. And so I want other people to also know about that stuff, a lot of communication for me, and it has to do with, keeping your body healthy, eating well, leading a good balanced life and so forth, being intellectual and stuff, being aware and so forth. That's what astrology is, okay? Uh, Very Aquarius. So it is very much supported. Okay, just an example there, okay? But here, the reason I talk about it is because whatever we are communicating with how we feel when it comes to money is making a challenge to Saturn. So these could be billionaires. Something about the Tao, maybe whatever you are communicating is kind of bringing this earthquake into stocks, because the Tao is connected with Saturn, and it has something to do with money, because where the Tao is at 20 degrees of Scorpio. So I could see what happened in Korea. They said there was a bloodbath, that something happened right away, like an earthquake. And we did have an earthquake in California, by the way, that I did not know. Okay. And then when I found out there was an earthquake, we had one in, where was it? I think it was, in somewhere part of Los Angeles, but it was more like Santa Clarita felt it. Um, I think other parts of Los Angeles, more like towards Hollywood, more down there. Pasadena, I think Pasadena felt it. It was a jolt. It was like a 4.1. It was a kind of small one, but it was a little jolt. But that matters, because one jolt can get into a big one. And so not only did Korea have an earthquake, we had one in California. And then I looked at the maps in astrocartography and geodetic maps, and it showed there definitely earthquake weather. Okay, Uranus was crossing through there, Mars, Venus, um, and I think that's it, right? Venus. It was Venus, Mars, Uranus, and those are important because those are earthquake planets. When you see Mars and Uranus crossing through there, it is earthquake weather. And also, Venus, there's something about love and money in Virgo. So there's something pertaining to, oh, and Pisces was crossing through there. Okay, the Pisces frequency was crossing through there as well, which has to do with the water. It has to do with ocean and beaches, and the MC in California is in Sagittarius. So it pertains also to some sort of recognition that maybe a Sagittarius is looking for, or somebody from another country that wants to be recognized, right? But yet the Pisces energy is crossing through there, which can also lead to celebrities, and spirituality, right? And faith and so forth that is crossing. There's something prophetic with that earthquake. And, they're all mutable. So they're either squaring each other or opposing each other. And a lot of it has to do with 10th house stuff, with having to be recognized, and battle of the wits. And you know, my advice is just keep doing your work, you know, keep doing your work, and you're going to be noticed and you're going to be recognized. And that's all you can do. I personally, I'm not in the competition or anything like that. Um, I know better not to do that because I learned from experience, and that will derail you, by the way. So just focus on your own work and understand that the right people are going to recognize you and your talents as you put yourself out there. Okay. And that's all you can do. But these earthquakes are happening to shake us, to shake our foundation of where we are or where we are going. And sometimes life can get a little boring. So earthquakes come in to shake, to rumble us, to get us out of our comfort zone, you know, and understand that sometimes that is what happens. And other times too, Mother Nature is pissed off, okay, because there have been too many drillings, when it comes to oil. Because we did see Pisces crossing through there. Pisces has to do with gas and it has to do with oil, okay. And so when you, especially, we've had the North Node in Pisces and it's wrapping up. As a matter of fact, let me look at here. It should be wrapping up pretty soon. Let's see. The North Node. Where are you, North Node? Why is it not showing up here? Oh, maybe because I have a lot of stacks of asteroids. So weird. It's not showing up. I do believe we're still under North Node in Pisces, but let me just check here because for some reason I didn't include it in here because I had deleted a lot of what do you call it, of a lot of asteroids, and I had to re-add them, and I probably didn't even add them. I'll do that later, but yeah, it still should be in there, but let me just double check here. I just don't want to do it right now because I might mess up the wheel. Okay, so it is okay till July 26th. Okay, so we still got some time. So it's still, the North Node is still in Pisces. Okay, and let me go back to the chart. It's still connecting with Fomalhaut. Okay, so there's still this elevation. And what is this other asteroid over here? Oh, the Rockefeller. Okay, so Rockefeller is not like Rockefeller, but it rules billionaires. It's the energy of billionaires. Okay, so anybody can have this frequency here. It is how in the sign of Pisces, so it's how we take action. So we have the North Node, we have Rockefeller, and we have the Fomalhaut. Okay, which has brought those big old gigantic waves. We've also seen, I think in China, I'm not too sure where it was. I don't know if it's the Philippines or China somewhere. They were showing like these tidal waves, big old tidal waves, like somewhere near the beach area, and the dirt, and it was all coming up and so forth, destroying homes and stuff. So we're still seeing a lot of that Fomalhaut, which is that star in the sign of Pisces that has to do with giant waves. And it's coming together with this asteroid of Rockefeller, which is the energy of billionaires, which has to do, it's so interesting. If you see a giant wave like that, count it as a blessing, okay? Just get out of the way, because it has frequency of billionaire frequency, okay? It's at 10 degrees of real estate, so it might be in your community. It might be in something to do with, even with politics, okay? something to do with businesses, anything like that, in the sign of Pisces. Okay, so and it's in the third house of communication, what we are communicating. So right now, our words are very important. What you manifest, okay, it can become reality like that. Okay, and it's whatever we manifest with our words, it can happen. Okay, and I had said, test God sometimes, not test them, but test your prayer with God, because Pisces is about spirituality, right? It's about God, Jesus Christ, right? And I said, God, show me a sign. I want to move. Show me a sign. And I was walking. I was power walking, and I walked through one of the, not a random. It was not the normal street that I walked through, right? And I decided to go another route. And then I seen this vintage car with this license plate that said Newport Imports, right? So I was like, oh, that's so weird, so bizarre. So that was my answer from God. And God does want me in Newport, Um, and I've always wanted to have a beach home. I've always wanted to live around the beach, or nearby a beach or anything like that. Because it brings restoration, it brings healing, it brings balance, right? And I'm a Pisces as well. I'm a triple Pisces. So I have to live near the water, especially because it's in the 11th house of community. Okay. So the 11th house has to do with friends and circles and community and so forth, and supportive community, that supports you, these circles that support you. And I actually had a dream as well, okay, going to Orange County, and there was a big old circle of young kids, like young people, millennials, Gen Zs, and they were getting wet inside this circle. And they wanted me to hop in there with them, they wanted me to jump in there, like take a leap, But it was not about getting wet or nothing in that circle with them. It was more about taking a leap, being like a grasshopper and just taking a jump, taking a jump or taking a leap on them, taking a risk or something like that, do some risk taking or something. Or it was a totally different environment, I do have to say. It was like a fun environment. Like there was not really no worries, It was just it's like it was just totally different environment, And the clothes I was wearing, I'm like, this is not clothes to jump in a pool, to jump in a big old circle of water, a body of water, But it was a beautiful dream, because I was supported, And yeah, it was just, I guess I'm supported by young people, And I was considered somebody like just respected and I don't know, wanting to connect with me in some kind of way or something. It was beautiful because in other areas I don't see that. That's why when it comes to relocation charts, when it comes to astrocartography, it's very important, because in one area you might feel really supported, in another area you might feel restricted. In another area you might gain weight because of stress and you overeat, or there's too much sugar around or something, or junk food. And then in another area might be like super healthy and um, you know diverse, or and so you got to try different areas, you got to move to different areas, because it matters how you lead your life. Okay, so anyway, so what is going on here, I do have to say, with this formal hot here, it's doing an exact opposition to Venus and Virgo. Okay, when it has to do with ninth house of countries, anything international. So there's an opposition. So that means there's two types of frequencies. Okay, the formal halt has to do with high elevated. Okay, there's this high elevation right now, especially for Pisces. Okay, and when it comes to communication, that's why you have to stay balanced. I still have I have my feet in a grounding mat. I don't know if I mentioned that. I think I mentioned it on the other podcast, but and it's grounding my feet because I really, really need to be grounded. And it's an opposition here to Venus and Virgo in other parts of the world. You know, um, it could be something about one area being elevated and then another area when it comes to countries, when it comes to resources and love. There is some type of control. Okay, or there might be a control from a Virgo that has a crush on you or has Virgo in their placements, that wants to control, that has maybe ancestry from another country or something. There's some sort of control. It's two different types of consciousness where the Venus and Virgo is thinking this way, and the Formal in Pisces with the North Node is thinking another way. It's thinking differently. Okay. And I do see a T square. So T squares are very important because there's also a lot of chaos that happens with T squares. So as it opposing, the Formal is making a square over here to Mars in Gemini when it comes to seventh house contracts, relationships, marriages. Okay. And also to Uranus in Gemini. Okay. Something unexpected. Okay. That is, and because Rockefeller is in the sign of Pisces, together with that Formal is also squaring Rockefeller. Okay. Something to do with billionaires that are like spiritual billionaires, forming a challenge to some kind of action that is being done with contracts. Mars in Gemini, Uranus in Gemini, that it's bringing some kind of earthquake weather. Okay, it's not just actual earthquake, but we're talking about earthquake weather when it comes to contracts, when it comes to some sort of communication, when it comes to countries. And all these talks like Donald Trump's talking about, like these wars in Iran, and I'm not really following through on all of that because for me it's distraction. But it's ideas that he's thinking about, or what, everything's so confusing with the kind of ideas that they're putting out there when it comes to politics. Okay, and this other challenge here with this Formal, the North Node, and Rockefeller in the sign of Pisces, with what you are communicating, it is bringing a challenge to. It is this asteroid here in Sagittarius, which is Tai Chi. Okay, so Tai Chi is a windfall of money. Okay, whether good or bad. But I see it good because it's coming together with the part of fortune in Scorpio. And and it's like hidden money. It's like secret money, stash money, which is making a challenge here to the North Node in Pisces and the Formal, that danger, the water star, and Rockefeller as well in Pisces, in some sort of communication. Okay, that can, I don't know, I would say uncover some kind of money from Sagittarius, or it doesn't have to be a Sagittarius. It could be somebody from another part of the world, of how they're earning money or some sort, you know. When I'm looking, and that's a T square there. So when I'm looking at this chart right now, there's a lot of issues. If you really want to boil it down, just break it down. There's a lot of issues with money that is secret money. There's a lot of issues with whatever is being said is taking some sort of money out of somebody that maybe feels that they deserve to have some sort of money. And maybe there's some sort of communication that's being analyzed and saying, well, let's look at this situation of what is going on. And then also any action and innovation and unexpectedness that is coming from Gemini, when it comes to contracts. Okay. That is making a challenge also with that North Node in Pisces. And, the North Node in Pisces is important because it has been about spirituality, faith. It has been about, the green light. It has been about fated and destined events, okay, for the past 2 years as is wrapping up. And so I would say you want to be aligned with Piscean energy, spiritual energy, the blue color, and just take it easy, you know. But there could be challenges because whatever's being taken, any action that's being taken, it's challenging your balance, right? It's like, oh, great. What do they do now? Now what? Right? What do they do now? Now what's going on over here? Right? With some sort of contracts that's disrupting your status quo, or it's disrupting your balance, your chi, right? And then also, it's opposing the Tai Chi and Sagittarius money. Okay, so whatever Uranus and Mars is doing in Gemini, it's opposing the Sagittarius money, and the Sagittarius money is challenging the destiny of Pisces. So these are all mutable signs, okay? Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Virgo. Okay, it's expected, right now. There's a lot of, but I like mutables because they actually go with the flow. It's not like cardinal signs where they're leaders and they got to fight for it and so forth. It's more about just like letting stuff go. If it pertains to your health, if it's not worth it, you know what I mean? Especially if you have a lot of opportunities, a lot of sextiles, like I do. I don't fight for one thing. If it doesn't happen, I just go on to the next opportunity, because my health matters more, and I like being balanced and so forth. So that could be some things that are going on. Okay, a lot of money things going on, a lot of how we take action and what we communicate. And it's good to communicate. Okay, it's good to communicate. It's good to bring awareness out there so people can make the right choices. And if they don't want to follow the astro weather, well, they don't have to. But there's certain people, the smart ones, that are going to listen to it, and they are going to make power moves when it comes to timing, and they're going to get results. And it's happened with me over and over and over all the time. Okay, where I've tried to help kind of people that don't have money, and I feel that they can gain more money through the astros, but it ends up that it's celebrities that end up taking the advice, and they end up making a whole lot of money and getting a whole lot more opportunities. And I've seen that pattern. I'm like, oh my God, look at that. How about that? Right? That this information was more for the people that are not making money, but this information is for everybody. Anybody can grab it and run with it. But it wasn't the people that don't have money. It was the people that have a lot of money. And that has to do with my astrology. That has to do, I attract people with money. I don't really, it's kind of hard to convince people that don't have much money to take a chance in this. And the people that do have money, they see my vision. They see what I'm talking about. They see, and they take action in that. And that's fine. Like I said, I'm not for everybody. But I wish that people that don't have money would, step out of their comfort zone a little and just take a look at this and just realize that it's all about frequency. And when you align with the frequency, you can make better decisions and better choices, because I was there once. And I don't know how the heck I did it without astrology. I did a lot of mistakes, a whole lot of mistakes. Okay. And now that I know astrology, I make less mistakes, okay? And it's not about being cautious. It is about taking action. But I would have never, when I think about my past of things that I did, I'm like, damn, I was crazy to do that. I would have never do it today like that. But it's all about growth, right? It's all about growth. And I think the best investment I've ever done is master astrology and become an astrologer. And you don't have to perfect it. You just got to know enough to be dangerous. So this is what we have for this podcast. If you did like it, do share, do subscribe to the podcast so we can grow, because when we grow, we can bring more awareness into the collective. We can make better choices, and we can support each other 1 week at a time, because this is a weekly podcast that I'm doing. and I enjoy it. I love talking. I love inspiring. I love to share storytelling as well. Okay, so people can understand a little bit more, and it won't be so boring, just astrology stuff, yeah, and we'll go from there. And if you are interested in going more deeper and would like to get a consultation or have any questions about your life and where you are going, and you want to know about your chart, personally, because this is for the collective, okay? When I do the readings, I do them personally, privately, tailored to you according to your birth chart and other type of charts that I also have. You can go to www.starzenith33.com and book a consultation, even if it's just a consultation. Maybe you don't want to know about your chart. Maybe you want to know something about life. I do also know psychology, okay? I'm certified as a life coach in neuroscience. And so if astrology is not your thing, well, if you want to talk, about, life changes, we could do them there as well, because I am a life coach in neuroscience as well. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.